Sup everyone, welcome to another video, and today as you guys see we have Albedo front and center. Now we want to talk about Albedo because of course he's currently on a rerun banner, but at the same time Albedo is the prime example of a character that I honestly feel like is slowly slipping away from people's minds, apart from people who really love him for his aesthetics or his nonchalant playstyle, very laid back, mobile friendly, lag friendly. You can be on 500 ms or ping, whatever you guys want to call it, and still execute Albedo damn near flawlessly because he's so reliable. That is why I think a lot of people tend to gravitate towards this character, and of course building him in Geo teams just makes your life that much easier. Geo is an element that really doesn't like to work with any other element. Now we do have Crystallize, and Albedo actually is one of the best Crystallize users in the game. I would argue actually Albedo is the best Crystallize user with his amazing elemental skill lasting on field for what seems to be an eternity. Unfortunately, there's just a little bit of a problem. Alright, so here's some statistic for you. Albedo's usage rate prior to Genshin, I believe 2.7, was 52%, or like 50 to 55%, like somewhere between there. It's been very consistent. Now take a guess what his usage rate was starting from patch 2.7. Now give you a couple seconds. Of course you don't have to care, this isn't for everybody. A lot of you guys are here just to have some background noise, but for the people who do care what happened to Albedo, his usage rate went from around 50 to 53% down to 14%. Now, does anybody care to take a wild, educated guess why that is? Like, what happened in Genshin 2.7 that caused Albedo's, like, he had a huge fall off, and I would say that's one of the biggest fall offs I've seen in any character. So here's the hint. The hint is something to do with a Hu Tao team composition usage, because Hu Tao is arguably one of the most consistently used carries in Abyss. Now I know Abyss, whatever, overworld, whatever, but then again, just entertain the stats here for a little bit, right? Basically, Albedo was replaced from the Hu Tao team. It used to be Hu Tao, Xingqiu, Albedo, Zhongli. Double Geo was incredibly good, very consistent, offered shielding bonuses, additional Geo damage, and additional crystallized shield even when the Zhongli shield broke, so you can always just have something on you to make sure your Hu Tao is protected. Well, that pretty much got overruled once, drumroll, Yelan came around. Now, a lot of guys, whenever I talk about this, they're like, oh, Walrus, stop talking about Yelan. Yelan's overrated. She actually sucks ass. I hate her. She is like garbage tier character. Albedo's way better than Yelan. Okay, like you may think that, all right? Honestly, you're free to think what you want to think, but let's just get one thing straight. Even without the Hydro Resonance rework, Yelan was better suited in the Hu Tao hypercarry team than Albedo was. It's simply because of Crystallize. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Crystallize is just absolute trash tier. It is like, it's barely usable. For the most part, people only use Crystallize as a byproduct in their team as opposed to building teams around Crystallize. I've said this before. I don't think there's any teams out there that are constructed because of Crystallize. Be like, oh, I have to have Crystallize in this team comp or else I can't play this team. And for reaction, that is so underwhelming and honestly outdated. Albedo couldn't keep his spot in the Hu Tao team, and that is the cause of essentially a over 30% usage rate drop. So many people ended up replacing him from the Hu Tao team. Now, of course, not everybody, because there's a lot of people who didn't get Yelan. So those people likely continue using Albedo, which is fine. Honestly, next to the Yelan team, Albedo is still the second best option in the Hu Tao team. Fast forward to the Hydro Resonance rework. Now that really just sealed the deal for Albedo. Is just next rerun when Yelan comes around, expect Albedo's usage to drop even more. However, a 14% usage rate for a character that was released back in, I believe, patch 1.2, that is almost 2 years ago is impressive. Like, we gotta say, for characters that are released over 2 years ago to still be used in 14% of the team comps that are only gathered by whatever statistics we have is pretty good. Honestly, I want to say maybe more people are actually using Albedo than we realize. Maybe he's just a very casual friendly character. Free to plays maybe want to build Albedo, especially if you play on the mobile phone and you're not very like combat savvy. Just drop his E, you have a well invested Albedo, it's going to be ticking for a ton of damage. Very, very passive stuff here. Like, you don't really need to think too hard about it. And another great thing about Albedo is he works with so many different characters. Yeah, if you want to talk about meta and what's the best, sure, he's not involved in a lot of those teams, but if you just want to layer damage for a carry who's on field, Albedo's great because you're not using Crystallize anyway, so you can use him for physical, you can use him for pyro, you can use him for whatever element you want. You can use him for Dendro, even though there's no Crystallize, he can still help you do damage. At the end of the day, that's all you need, right? Just more damage, pile damage on. Like, sure, reactions are great, but if you don't care about combat, if you don't care about min-maxing this stuff, then why do any of this matter to you? That is where I think Albedo's value is that if you are a casual whatever player, Albedo is going to be there consistently without fail with amazing uptime. And when we look at these stats, of course, he's gonna look underwhelming, underperforming. That's because for the most part, this stat is collected by and from people who actually care about combat, who wants to min-max, who always goes for the best there is. So at the end of the day, if you're somebody who's casual, free to play, really don't care about the Spiral Abyss, or you get anxiety from playing the Spiral Abyss, Albedo is actually a very consistent character that just works everywhere. Now, granted, if you can overlook the fact that Geo is a very boring element, to be quite honest with you, it only has one reaction, and that's Crystallize. Similar to Swirl, I do think Swirl and Crystallize are some of the most boringest reactions in the game, simply because they have no flexibility. Of course, Swirl is much better because it has Iridescence, so at least it has utility for you. I mean, I guess Swirl is much better in terms of utility as well because of its qualities when it usually gathers enemies for you. Okay, but that aside, what's the deal with Albedo going forward? What can we expect from him? Is there any glow up opportunities? Is there any chances that HoYoverse is going to release something that makes use of this character? So I want to direct your attention to his second talent, right? Using Rite of Progeniture, which is his burst skill, Tectonic Tide. I'm just going to call it Tectonic Tide. It's his burst skill. Increases the elemental mastery of nearby party members by 125 for 10 seconds. Now, 125 elemental mastery is definitely nothing to scoff at. And actually, when people try to defend Albedo and his usefulness in the game, they almost always point towards this. Now that is very interesting, especially with Dendro reactions heavily leaning towards elemental mastery. There definitely is one scenario, just one, in the future, depending on how teams can be constructed and if there are any extra slots available for Albedo, we can potentially see him using this second passive to boost team damage. Now, here's the other thing, right? Because Geo doesn't have any reaction with Dendro, you're not going to be messing up any of your Dendro reactions, meaning using Albedo to layer additional damage could be something we see down the line. But on the contrary, there is also an issue. Albedo doesn't take away Dendro from your reactions, but he will take away the other element that is being procced. So depending on how you play Albedo, there's a chance that you might end up accidentally proccing a ton of Crystallize, which is also something that I honestly feel like is going to be quite yikes. Again, considering Crystallize is really non-beneficial to most team comps, if not all team comps. So there you have it. Like, I mean, this character is dated for sure, but at the same time, I just feel like there's always an opportunity for him to slide in and be useful somewhere. It's just hard to pinpoint exactly where and how. Finally, I want to direct your attention to Constellation 6 for Albedo. Is active party members within the Solar Isotoma field, which is his elemental skill, who are protected by a shield created by Crystallize, have their damage increased by 17%. A 17% damage increase for the rest of your team. Granted, they have to be be protected by crystallized shield created within Albedo's elemental skill. Now that, my friends, is a heavy requirement. Honestly, I would wish to see the damage increase instead of 17%, which is a very odd number to pick, to like increase it maybe to 25%, and this constellation may see greater value. It just doesn't seem 17% in exchange for Albedo in the team is very useful. So even if you have Albedo at max investment, it's hard to say that it's going to be worthwhile. And finally, depending on when you play the game, you may or may not even have Albedo's best 4-star free-to-play weapon, which was given to you through an event. As you guys see, I don't have it because at the time I just didn't want to play the event. Do I regret it? Not really. I have a Refinement 5 Festering Desire, and it's functioning just fine for me. And honestly, Albedo is very free-to-play friendly with Harbinger of Dawn as well, if you really are free-to-play and don't even have Festering Desire. But honestly, it's hard to recommend people to pull for Albedo nowadays. He's almost exclusively used in Ito teams, so if you don't have Ito or you don't play Noel, it's hard to recommend Albedo to you because of the reason that nowadays team slots are so incredibly rare, and you just don't have enough team slots for Albedo to slide in. And almost always, if you have one Geo in your team, you likely want a second one. Without that second Geo and getting that resonance activated, Geo characters for the most part are really wasteful in your team comps. Now again, if you just want to play and have fun, be my guest, but this is where I sit. I do think that Albedo doesn't need a rework, Geo doesn't need a rework, but really Geo reactions could really use an overlook. Unfortunately, there was no new Geo Dendro reactions, which I do think it could have been a great opportunity for Hoyoverse to give Geo the time of day, I guess, their own little spotlight, but unfortunately that was not meant to be. That leaves us right here. Albedo has really lost a huge portion of his purpose in the game meta-wise, but he's still a very consistent and loved character. Alright, if you guys want to pick him up, go ahead, but honestly, I think you should wait for Nahida and see what she can do first. Not like Albedo is going to be going anywhere, he's likely going to make future reruns. At the same time, you do get to see what Nahida does in next week's livestream prior to Albedo's banner going away. So that's all I wanted to say for Albedo. Thank you guys so much for watching, and actually I want to see you guys in my live stream tomorrow, so well, later today for some of you guys, so maybe we'll talk more then. Till then, urge you all to stay safe and peace. Bye.